Okie dokie, I believe we are all the way being recorded. Hello and welcome to my graveyard. I am your host of the evening, the Cemetery Man from Salem, Mass. Always taking names and kicking candy ass, live in the living color here with you only on Grande's Graveyard. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I know another pre-recorded video. Pretty weird that I've been doing these lately, but I kind of enjoy them. It's a nice way to extend the channel a little bit, give a little bit of an additional content when I can. And I've really been wanting to talk about this movie for quite a while, since I first saw it. And I've mentioned it on the show in passing, but I haven't really been able to give my true Grande's Graveyard review of it until now, until this video, because I recently just got the 4K Blu-ray limited edition, or I don't even know if it is limited, but I know it's from A24 themselves. This is not, you can't get this from a third-party seller. This is directly from A24 themselves, and this is the 4K special edition release of a little movie called Heretic. Yes, Heretic, the 4K Blu-ray special edition here. Really cool little cover, of course, a play on the board game, which you've seen the movie. You've obviously know what that's referencing. Now, of course, I figured I'll give my review on the film, and then I'll show a little bit of this set off and show, you know, some of the behind-the-scenes photos that they have in here, the packaging, stuff like that, artwork. I figured I'd do a 2-in-1, a 4K Blu-ray review and a review of the movie itself. So, like always, brief plot synopsis. Two young religious women are drawn into a game of cat and mouse in the house of a strange man. Yes, of course, directed by Scott Beck and Brian Woods, who also wrote the film. Now, you may recognize those names from making a little movie called Haunt that came out in, I believe, 2019. That's never been a movie I've liked. I like so many other Haunt-type horror movies, whether it be Tobe Hooper's The Funhouse or Dark Ride or hell, even Hellfest, I would have taken over Haunt. I think Haunt is severely overrated. But with that being said, I do believe these two directors / writers, they bounced back in a big way with this particular movie right here called Heretic from A24 Films. And of course, I think the biggest key to why this movie is so great is its lead antagonist, which is played by none other than Hugh Grant. Now, Hugh Grant, obviously, horror fans probably, wow, what other horror movies have he done? Maybe The Lair of the White Worm, right? I believe he's in that movie. That may be his only other horror movie that's ever come into my mind here. But of course, Hugh Grant's known for romantic comedies and just straight up comedies in general. I mean, the guy is a really, really good talent, right? Whether movies like Love Actually, or I think Hugh Grant is great. But in my opinion, he's really the key to this entire movie and why it works, because it tells the story of these two Mormon practicing women. Of course, one played by Sophie Thatcher, who I think is going to be an absolute megastar by the time this is all said and done. Of course, she starred in Boogeyman. She's starring in the upcoming Companion. I'm going to make the bold prediction that she's going to be the next big thing. I really do think she has that it factor. Whatever it is, Sophie Thatcher has it, and I really like her. And of course, the other one is played by Chloe East, who I thought she did an excellent job in this movie, too. They are door-to-door Mormon practicers, and of course, they are trying to get Chloe East her first baptism. And what that basically means is you go to the door, you convince someone to join Mormonism, you baptize them, and then it's like getting a Boy Scout badge, or I guess in this case, a Girl Scout badge. It's like a knock on the belt that you want to get. And they go door-to-door for all these strangers. They're having no success, no luck, until they stumble upon the door of one Hugh Grant, who invites them in. And basically, from the moment they sit down on his couch all the way to the end of this thing, the tension you feel in this movie is just simply unmatched by any other movie I saw this year. And now I did see better, right? I did think Nosferatu was a little bit better than this, and I would say Stop Motion was still my favorite of the year. But tension-wise, I don't think those two movies have anything on the tension that you feel in this movie. And I will say it's very well written. I think the dialogue in this movie is great, because I'm not ever really one for being interested in religion, right? I'm not a religious guy, not against anyone that is. If you are, if you're super positive and passionate about your faith, no matter what religion it may be, that's fantastic. That's awesome, and that's good for you. I personally, just not my thing usually. So I thought a talky movie about religion with Hugh Grant as the villain, A24 producing, these are a lot of red flags. These are a lot of things that normally would make me go, nah, I will wait. I'll pass on it. But my good friend Will McDevitt, Dr. Howdy, who we've had on the show for plenty of things. Of course, he was just on for the Tales from the Hood trilogy retrospective, which I highly recommend you watch that episode. But he's the one that came, he was like, Rhonda, you got to see this. You got to see this. You'll love it. And I trust his opinion most of the time. And I was like, you know what? All right. So I went to the theater. My good friend friend Terry, and me and Terry, we saw this and we were both pretty blown away. I thought this was just an excellent movie. And it's amazing how they made something that, to me, on the surface level, a topic like religion, something I find uninteresting in my day-to-day life, they made the uninteresting interesting. And that is one of the hardest, most difficult things to do when you're making a film, right? If you're not interested, why should I bother? If I'm not interested, why am I going to like it? And these directors, of course, I got their name, Scott Beck and Brian Woods, they just do a great job at that. And what do I mean by that? There is some great dialogue where Hugh Grant is making a kind of argument towards them, and he says, well, why don't I put it in layman's terms? What's your favorite fast food? I know it's bad and we should never overindulge and we shouldn't do it, but everybody has one. Tell me your favorite. And they get into this big discussion, and of course there's the one line, we don't talk about Taco Bell. Why don't you talk about Taco Bell? Well, to talk about Taco Bell, about why we don't go to Taco Bell, we'd have to talk about Taco Bell. I love that. I thought that was great. I thought that was really funny. They go through all of them, Burger King and Hardee's and Checkers and all of these things, until one of them says, well, I maybe would go Wendy's. And Hugh Grant is the great line, oh, I've never had a Wendy. I love that. And there's certain really uncomfortable lines that he delivers where it's the old school Gene Wilder trope. You don't know if he's lying or telling the truth. And thus it is hard to kind of proceed with this film when you hear him, because he almost works you ABC, right? If A, B, and C are true, certainly D, E, and F will be. And that's not necessarily the thing here either. There's a lot of interesting arguments here that I just truly got very invested in. And there's parts where Hugh Grant is going on about plagiarism and things that borrow from others, right? Certain songs, like All the Air That I Breathe was suing Radiohead when they released Creep. And then Creep sued Lana Del Rey when she did her song, and how all of these things over time, whether it be music, whether it be movies, whether it be literature, whether it be board games, whether it be religion, we're all rip-offs of each other, right? Iterations, things that knockoffs, if you will. And I love all the arguments presented, right? He goes through board games and, oh, this is Monopoly, but you may not have heard of the board game Monopoly ripped off, and here it is. And that's why, hence, you have this awesome little cover here. That's the railroad game that Hugh Grant shows them. He goes, this was the original. Why is this one not sung? Why is Judaism and Christianity and Islam, why are these the big three when you have 12 other faiths that were before Christ, before God, that were, again, like iterations of what the story ends up being when it comes to Christianity or Mormonism? I was like, this is so freaking interesting to me, man. Like, it's really interesting to hear him argue. And for a while, this is a debate movie with the most tension you've ever imagined in the world, and great dialogue. Like, I would say it's like some of the best dialogue and writing I've heard in a movie all year. It's just really, really good and intellectual, and it really challenges you as a viewer. And I was on the edge of my seat throughout the first watch and the rewatch of this 4K here. Hugh Grant steals it. I think he's just so intense and never trying to be over the top menacing with his performance. He's very on the same level. He's very stoic. He's very stern in his performance. He doesn't go ooga booga. He doesn't go over the top with the creep factor. He's just himself. And I thought that was what made it so organic and why it worked, right? Because if he had went over the top and, twirling his mustache and petting a kitten, it may not have worked. He added charm to it, right? Because he comes from the world of romantic comedies. He comes from the world of how do I draw humor? How do I elicit humor? How do I add something on the paper to make it more funny when I'm acting in the film? And he does that, but with horror. And I thought that was so great. There are little like ad libs when you watch the special features on this that I didn't know, obviously, until I saw. I mean, there's a point where he's explaining what his favorite Monopoly piece is, and he goes, I won't tell. And then he purrs like a kitten. And that was not in the script. He just completely had that. I've never had a Wendy. That wasn't in the script. I mean, so many things that Hugh Grant brings to this role, in my opinion, to elevate his character and give him more personality, right? This isn't just a black level villain. This is somewhere more in a gray area. And I thought Hugh Grant just knocked it out of the park, caught the ball himself with this, man. He's just great. And Sophie Thatcher goes mano a mano, toe-to-toe with him the whole way, whereas Chloe East is kind of the I just want to go home party, and he makes them have crucial decisions, right? There's 2 doors in his house. He writes belief and disbelief on the doors, and there's the big tension scene. Which door are they going to pick? What is the right door to pick? What is the wrong door to pick? Is there right and wrong? Is there a way that everything can be argued? And I don't know, man. I thought this was just such a fresh taste of water for the genre. I really did. I haven't seen a movie quite like this. Now, you can compare it to other movies where it's just claustrophobic and you have a crazy person, like movies like Misery. I could totally see similarities there, but I think this one is a little bit more intellectual and it's a little bit more challenging. And it really questions, if you are someone that is very religious, it questions your moralities and thoughts and hopes and beliefs of faith. And do you believe or do you not believe? What will you do to get out of this house that Hugh Grant seems to have on lockdown? There's twists and turns along the way. I don't think the third act quite sticks the landing. There's this whole third act where Hugh Grant has these women in the lair, his like underground lair. And at that point, I'm like, oh, like you lost me a little bit. You go into some prophets and things like that. That's probably the weakest point of the film. But overall, I really do enjoy the journey. Sometimes it's more about the journey than it is the destination. Sometimes it's more about the climb than it is the ultimate payoff. And this is one of those movies where I enjoy the climb a lot. Is this movie for everybody? No. There are some people that will say it's too talky. There are some people that will say it's too boring. I dare to say, if you're not someone that likes to think while you're watching a movie or question your own, humanity, this is not the movie for you. There are not a lot of jump scares, but I do think it has a great tension, and I do think it calls a lot of great, interesting questions that, again, challenge your psychology of horror. And I think that this movie did just a really good job in that. I really enjoyed this. I thought this from top to bottom was really interesting, really unique, and something that, dare I say, I haven't really seen anything quite like, is Heretic from A24. Now, I figured I'd get a little bit into this release here. So it pulls open a part like this. And we have, of course, our 2 female leads here. And then, of course, Hugh Grant. And this is their opening when they meet each other on the couch. Really fun scene. It starts off very harmless, the tension of blueberry pie baking in the oven. If you've seen the movie, you know what I mean. And then conversations of fast food and religion. Of course, you have the inside here where you have the brown 4K disc, and then of course if you take set out, oops, I just flopped the pictures out here. No retakes. We're live. Well, we're being recorded live. This is the whole disbelief and belief, the doors section, which I thought was really cool. And then of course, as I flung them out of here, you also have some behind the scenes photos, which I thought were pretty cool. So you have this one of the 2 women. Sorry about the bad glare. I think that's better. Yeah, the bad glare here. But you have the 2 lead actresses, of course, Sophie Thatcher and Chloe East in the underground layer. And then on the back, you have the board game stuff of Heretic. Of course, right here, the whole Taco Bell thing, which I thought was great. Why don't you talk about Taco Bell? Well, if we had to tell you why we don't talk about Taco Bell, we'd have to talk about Taco Bell. I love that. I thought that was funny. Someone must have ordered Taco Bell one night and was like, behind the scenes photo. This is the 2 girls peeking out from the basement as someone comes and knocks on the door. It's actually Topher Grace, which I thought was pretty funny to see him in this movie. Here's one of the prophets that they meet in the basement, which, yeah, again, that part is, it just doesn't quite stick the landing there. But and then, of course, one more of the prophets in Hugh Grant's lair. It really does, I think, beg good questions. And, when you get to the whole finale, big spoiler, I'll give you a big spoiler here. Hugh Grant, as the movie goes on, he says, when I was in college, the last thing I ever wanted to find out was what was the true religion. What was the one true religion? That was the one thing I was so scared of finding for all of these years and years. And, of course, it culminates to the end where he challenges Chloe East, hey, what do you believe is the one true religion after everything that you've learned here tonight, after everything I've showed you, after every question I've asked? What, in your opinion, is the one true religion? And she says it's control. Control is the one true religion. And I was like, that is such an interesting look on it. It's such an interesting take. And I'm not saying you have to look at it that way too, but that's really Hugh Grant's game. That's really Hugh Grant's whole point, is that, any organization, any religion, any group, if they control you a certain way, if they tell you one thing from a young age and you just choose to believe it, that in a way is controlling of you. And that's his whole thing. And he's against that. really good stuff. I like the whole final shot, of course, which I won't, I guess, give that part away. But I think Heretic is a really, really good modern day horror movie. I'm not usually got to go for A24. If it's not Eggers, usually I'm like, with A24 horror movies. This is one that I really, really liked. I think the three core players in here, East, Thatcher, and Grant, they all do a great job. I think this is an awesome 4K. It looks fantastic. Special features wise, you get like a 15-minute making of, and you do have a director, writer commentary with both Scott and, of course, Brian Woods. You get a nice director commentary with them that I did listen to some of, but I was definitely more interested in revisiting the movie and seeing more of these great performances and great horror psychology questions. So that is Heretic from A24. I paid a pretty penny for this. This was over like $30 for this. And honestly, we live in a day now where you're not going to get the most bang for your buck when it comes to special editions, especially of new movies. Like, you generally get the generic making of segment and a commentary. That's really all you're going to get. Like, if you want the boatloads of features, you may have to wait 20 years. You have to wait till Hugh Grant is bald and old and gray. You have to wait till Sophie Thatcher or Chloe East, if their career tumbles, to get a big sit-down one-on-one interview with the two of them talking about the day in and day out experience on the making of this movie, which I do hope happens one day. I would like to hear more. I really would. Like, the features that are on here are good, but I wanted a little bit more, especially from a limited edition, special edition, A24 exclusive release that you can't get on Amazon or anywhere else. You can only buy from them. So, I don't know. I highly recommend you guys give this a check out. If you have seen this movie, please comment down below. Let me know what you thought of it. If you want to give me a rating, I went with an 8 out of 10. I thought this was a really good modern day horror flick that I do think more people should see and discuss. So that is Heretic from A24. This has been, of course, a pre-recorded Grande's Graveyard 4K special review. Very excited to do this today. I just had some extra time, and I figured since I had missed 2 straight weeks of live Thursday shows, I was like, I owe you guys a little something extra. So I hope you all enjoyed this. Of course, catch me and my good friend Matteo Appanino this Thursday night on Grande's Graveyard as we talk all things Quentin Tarantino. Not 1, not 2, but 3 QT movies. Of course, Reservoir Dogs, my pick. Inglourious Bastards was Mateo's pick, and your pick, the fans voted in, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood from 2019. So the beginning, middle, and end, really, of Quentin Tarantino's career we'll be reviewing this week only on The Graveyard. So, too sweet, peace, and we'll catch you next time. Night, everybody.